Hey. Album of the Year alert! Album of the Year alert!
Album of the Year alert!
Album of the Year alert! Album of the Year alert! Hey guys, what's up? It's a Culture Detective here investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to do an album review on the latest Squid album, Bright Green Field. Squid is a post-punk art punk band from Brighton, and this is their debut album, Bright Green Field, which is really confusing because it looks like the album cover to Porter Robinson's Narrator, which came out like a couple weeks ago, and I reviewed it like a couple days ago. But this is actually a different album. This is Bright Green Field, and this album cover is actually AI generated, so you may not actually be able to figure out what's going on in the album cover because there's actually nothing going on in the album cover. The whole thing is AI generated. So anyways, Squid. Oh, yes, finally an album from Squid. Hell yeah. And lately there has been a string of British art punk, post-punk bands that has been dropping one critically acclaimed and popular album after another. Of course, we have Shame with Drunk Tank Pink, and then not too long after, Black Country New Road released their debut album, that is, for the first time, because they released an album, a studio album for the first time. And now we have Squid, and by the end of May, we're gonna have another Black Midi album, and that's incredibly exciting. Also, not forget to mention other art punk bands in Europe that also has been getting popular in the recent days, like Viagra Boys, who also released an album earlier this year, which is not bad. But I digress. Let's go back to Squid with Bright Green Field. Holy crap. Spoiler alert, but I love this album. I love this album. I've been a fan of post-punk and neo-post-punk and the likes, such as The Smiths, The Cure, Joy Division, Wire, and a little bit of Gang of Four. And as far as neo-post-punk goes, bands like Algiers and Proto Martyr, and also hardcore punk like Idols have always been bands that I really love. And seeing Squid pop out with this album, I'm also extremely excited and happy about this album. So we have the Resolution Square opener, which is just this 41-second long intro track. That's just noise, but it leads into G.S.K, which is a total friggin' banger. It starts off with these mid-paced synths and drums and guitars, and these really slow but shouty spoken word performed by Ollie Judge, the vocalist and also at the same time the drummer of the band. And usually when bands do this slow, shouty spoken word, it usually sounds really awkward, but when Ollie Judge does it, it's shouty, it's full of personality, it's whack. It sounds like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown whenever he shouts, and it just adds so much energy to the album, which I really love. And then we get the groovy horns and the herky-jerky guitars, and it's just such a fun track. The twangy guitar solos on this thing, oh my goodness. And then again, the lyrics, they're really weird, and the lyrics are also really weird for the rest of the album, but from what I can tell and what I can see from the lyrics, apparently G.S.K stands for GlaxoSmithKline, which is this British chain pharmacy, and I think this track is about working at a pharmacy and how routine and how dull it must be to be working at a pharmacy. And but then again, that's just a speculation. I might be wrong about the lyrics, but nonetheless the performances are whack. They're amazing. On concrete island, I hope my dinner is warm. Then we have the second track, Narrator, and this is one of the biggest lead-up singles to this album. Also one of my favorite songs of the year so far. Essentially, we get these tight drums, guitars, and bass, and it is paired with these female whispery vocals that are very soft, and then contrasted with the rough, shouty Ollie Judge vocals, and then we get these off-kilter guitars and also these swooshy sound effects there are tons of post-punk bands nowadays that try to do this rough, old school vintage sound that's kind of dated, but the sound that Squid is approaching on this album is a little bit more watery and swishy, which pretty much lives up to the name of the band, Squid. And I really love that. And there are also all these ups and downs in this track. There are noisy climaxes and quiet lows as well, and also these refrains at the end. I'll play mine, I'll play mine, I'll play mine, I'll play mine, and it kind of reminds me of like a Swans song, but then again, Squid has their own style, has their own sound effect and production style, and it just really is special to their own. And lyrically, this track I think is about losing your sense of individuality, because the lyrics essentially deal with losing touch with your own memory, but you being your own narrator, but you still have to play your own part. And then up next we have the track Boy Racers, another long track, about 7.5 minutes long, and it starts off with these lukewarm guitars, and it kind of sounds like it's building up to something, but at around the 3.5 minute mark, it just abruptly transitions into 4 minutes of ambient drone. And it it's hilarious in concept, but musically, it's not all that satisfying. In fact, it's a little underwhelming, given that the first half of the track sounds like it's building up to something, and then it's just ambient drone, which is a little bit disappointing. But then it is followed with Paddling, which is another really fun track. In fact, this track has this really strong old school post-punk vibe to it, very heavily inspired by 70s and early 80s post-punk bands like Television and Wire and Gang of Four. We get these bashing electronic beats. Again, some of the beats produced on this album are rather inorganic, which again shows that this band is not trying to, remake the post-punk albums of the past, but they are trying to hold their own style and sound. And then we get these very stiff and almost goofy call and response singing and shouting. And once in a while, this track hits a stop, and then it suddenly gets faster and faster and faster, and the whole track just speeds up until the very end. And then we have the track Documentary Filmmaker, one of the more interesting tracks on the album in my opinion. We have lyrics essentially describing what a documentary filmmaker would do, posing for a photo, meeting some hospital wards, and we get these sloppy and lazy horns and synths, and it just progressively gets louder and noisier and shoutier. And even though I think lyrically and conceptually this is one of the more interesting tracks, I'd say that I'm not going to come back to this track as often as I do other tracks on the album. Anyways, we have the track 2010, which is a softer cut on the album. We get these really warm and flavored guitars, which reminds me of like in Rainbow's era Radiohead. And then we get these echoey spoken word and these layered vocals, and they sort of cascade into one another, creating a swirling and almost entrancing effect, which is really strange and a really interesting change of pace for the album. And we also got really strange, friendly lyrics on this track, which has these like, I'm upside down, you're upside down. It's really weird, and it's really worth the time looking into. We have The Flyover, which is an interlude with warm horns packed very densely, and it transitions into Peel Street, which is another amazing track on the album. We have angular and odd keyboards and guitars, which are incredibly noisy, probably the noisiest on the entire album. And then in the second half, it changes into something sadder, more sour, more watery. And then at the final moments of the track, it goes back up to the noisy first half again. And the whole track structurally is just very alive and energetic and interesting, and another highlight on the album. We have the track Global Groove, which is, Yes, admittedly, the most slow-paced track on the entire album, but given that there are tons of high-energy tracks, it's normal to have a slow-paced tracks towards the end of the album, and the first half of Global Groove has pretty much nothing but vocals, but these vocals are very dejected at times, and they're really well done again. And then we get these very dejected funeral horns, and we have lyrics about, I guess, the globalization and the commercialization of everything around us right now, especially lyrics like watch your favorite war on TV and then go to bed, watch your favorite sitcom, watch a tear stream down your face, tap, tap, tapping. And the album ends off with Pamphlets, which is an 8-minute closer with tight guitars and drums and these horns that are so dramatic and so cinematic. And then toward the end, it gets rough, it gets really distorted, and it becomes more blissful and crazy, and it is amazing. Also, we have refrains. That's why I don't go outside, and apparently these pale bricks and wide smiles is the reason why the singer doesn't go outside. And it's almost like the song is about a certain fear, a certain anxiety of the outside world, especially after the quarantine. When you're stuck at your home for so long, for so much, and when it is over, I don't know when will it be over, but when it is over, it's going to take a little while for us to get back to, actually going outside constantly, because I'm not used to that as well at this point. But yeah, great album ending. Oh my goodness, great album ending and great album overall. Just one amazingly written track after another, stellar performances, tight drums, tight guitars, crispy production, really interesting songwriting, and lots of flavors, lots of versatility, and easily my favorite album of the year so far. My favorite track here is Narrator, Pamphlets, G.S.K. I love all these three. And my least favorite is Boy Racers. I'm giving Squid's Bright Green Field a 9 out of 10. So, have you listened to the latest Squid album? From 1 to 10, how much you rate it? Like it and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching.